Okay, it's been a few weeks of trying to catch that Goliath crab, Hercules. As a matter of fact, he recently molted and he left a claw that was fairly good size, which means he's even bigger now because he's shed his skin and grown out of it. So I'm gonna take a drastic measure here, and I'm gonna go in, dismantle the rocks, and try and find where he is. It's not something I like to do because I have built the shelves very specifically, but I built the tank also open, and so I can raise my lights and get in there pretty easily, and hopefully it doesn't get too messy. But it'll be nice to see Hercules face to face. Take him and put him down in that sump. In true Matt style, I have gone a little overboard. I pulled one piece of rock out that I really thought had the Hercules crab in it, and he wasn't there. So then I pulled another, and then another, and then another, and then another, and I'm gonna have a long night. But you know what? You go back to basics, and then maybe you can come up with something even more beautiful because you've learned how your tank works, and maybe the second time around you can do it even better. So I'm hoping that I can put this tank back together better than I had it before. And the mission of this, which was to get the crab, was a failure. Hopefully when I put everything back, I can find out where the hell he is and get him out. Crazy. Okay, so it's been about a month since I got in and tried to find Hercules. I tore my whole tank apart. I had buckets of rocks all over the office. I basically turned everything upside down to no avail. I could not find that bastard. I ended up putting all my rock back and into a Rock-scape that I think is now a little bit improved. I really enjoy building Rock-scape. For me, it's one of the most interesting things about having a fish tank because I like to scuba dive and I like to see what's out in nature, and the idea of having a fish tank is being able to have a piece of delicate nature, you know, in your vicinity. I don't have an ocean I can just run out to and do scuba diving. So this is my opportunity to kind of play nature and mimic as much as I can from the ocean. So when I build a Rock-scape, I start with the foundation. The large rocks that aren't so porous, I stick at the bottom and I make sure to sink them into the aggregate, the sand. Always make sure to have your foundation deep into the sand, touching the glass if you can. Because what that does is you'll get all sorts of crabs and crustaceans that will dig under there. Sometimes you have a fish that filters the sand through his mouth. And a lot of times, even anemones. Anemones are notorious for this. Digging their foot in underneath your rock, shoving everything out of the way. And then what ends up happening is they destabilize your foundation. And if your foundation is bad, your whole Rock-scape's going to come down. Now, originally, I had a flatter and lower Rock-scape, but this time I built it in sort of a mound. I have basically cliff edges on this side, the front, and the side as well. And what I liked when I was in the ocean is I always saw sponges and animals that lived on the sides of these cliffs underwater, and I kind of wanted to mimic that and give a habitat for these type of organisms to live. So I have done that, and my top area here is a little bit closer to the light and is more flat. Before there was a few shelves, but there was a lot more pores that went down into the center. So I brought some of the rock that I had into the sump up and I laid it out like a plane, almost like the planes. And this allows me a lot of real estate to put coral on. And it allows all the coral to be somewhat level with each other in conjunction with the light. A lot of times I had corals that were too low and they weren't growing enough. Now I can control the environment a little bit better. So once the foundation is in place, then you can lay in that second layer. My second layer was not the layer that you see. My second layer is actually down below and is basically linking the foundation pillars together. And then on top of those, you see there's about 10 or 15 rocks that make up this top plane of the tankscape. The objective to Rock-scape is patience. The more patient you are, the more you're going to get rocks that will interlink in beautiful ways. If I just throw the rock in and I'm worried about moving rock back and forth as quick as I can because I'm worried about the animals dying or whatnot, you end up having a less than desired Rock-scape that you might want to tear out in the future. So what I do is I have water that's heated as much as I can and turning, and I have my rocks in there so that the organisms on them aren't dying, and I am placing, and then I'm moving, and then I'm placing, and then I'm moving, and I'm moving. It's funny, sometimes I think that the rocks that they took these, or the reefs that they took these rocks from were together, because sometimes they just lay into each other so perfectly that they become immobile and they allow me to build up from there. So take your time, build your Rock-scape the way you want it. You can see that I have a lot of flat pieces on top of pillars. I like that. I like to have these edges kind of stick out. But maybe you like big, heavy arches or things like that. I've got a beautiful arch up front that used to be part of the foundation from the previous Rock-scape that was more interior. I brought it to the exterior. So now my Rock-scape is built. A lot of the rocks that were a little bit lower weren't getting any light. Now they are. And when I put them up, they were quite white because the coralline algae hadn't grown around them. But it's been a while now, and I can see purple just propagating all over that white rock. I am very lucky to have a rich environment for growing coralline algae, and it just takes hold like wildfire. And I got a beautiful coralline algae on my glass, on the back. I mean, it really propagates great. So right now, my rocks are starting to change from white to purple. As soon as they do, everything kind of looks uniform and looks like it was meant to be. Right now, you could still see some white areas, and you can kind of think, wow, why is that happening? Your Rock-scape is part of the filtration system of your tank. The little organisms that live on that rock help to break down waste, to get rid of nitrates. They're all doing certain amount of work in your tank. So if you look from the one side all the way through, you will see that my Rock-scape, although it is a mountain, it is completely porous. The more water that you can have flowing through the innards of your Rock-scape, the better that you're going to have turnover of chemicals, and the reactions that go down that break down waste will speed up, and you'll have a wonderful, beautiful, clean water system. I'm obsessed about it. So when you look at my Rock-scape from the side, you see all the way through the caverns and the holes and everything. Now, I've been doing my tests and everything, and the tank has kind of evened out. My pH is a little bit low, but everything else is at 0. When I say a little bit low, it's at about 8. And that's nothing to be afraid of. Obviously, if you get down in the low 7s, you need something to worry about. But you have to look at the behavior of the corals in your tank and take into consideration how everything is doing to gauge exactly how that pH is affecting your tank mates. So I'm looking at the situation and saying, wow, I've got a really good situation to add some corals, so that's what I did. Yesterday, I added a number of SPS corals to start to build my tank up again. I am really happy. I've got 6 different varieties of SPS coral. I've got a leather that is taking hold. I've bought a new clam. Let's talk a little bit about coral placement, because if you look on Live Aquaria when you are shopping for your corals, or wherever you do shop for your corals, or you talk to your local fish shop guy, every coral in this tank requires different parameters in order to survive successfully. Light, flow, and of course your pH and chemical signatures. Light and flow are really the 2 most important criteria for placing coral. Flow is important when you create your rockscape because you want flow to penetrate through the whole aquarium. You don't want stagnant water. So I have 2 wave maker pumps that are each cycling water from the bottom all the way to the top in the center, and then they loop around and they come back down the bottom, and there's 2 of these circles. So they do this basically from both sides. And what that does is it creates movement everywhere. Some places are a little bit of movement, some places are really high movement. Most SPS corals require a fairly high movement rate of water. So you'll see a lot of my SPSs within the general cone vicinity of that jet that comes out of the wave maker. The kind of subtle light moving areas, you'll find my LPS and softer corals, my leather and some of these places. As long as you can get those tentacles just moving to bring food into that area, then that's good enough for a lot of these organisms. But you got to mix that with light. For example, I have some plate corals down at the bottom that require a bottom environment. They sit on the sand. Their light absorption is not huge, and their flow rate is not required to be huge, too much, and they end up closing up. So they find their place at the bottom. I also have a beautiful Elegance coral that sits in front that gets the 2 pumps kind of flow down and give it a beautiful like little brushing of water right in the front area, and it does really well there. Now, I also have delicate things like my sponges. Sponges require a fairly steady flow, decent lighting, at least mine do. There are some sponges that require no lighting. Actually, most sponges require very little to no light because they don't photosynthesize their food. But my orange sponges do require some light. I also have some Christmas tree coral. I call it Christmas tree coral. This requires low light. You'll find them in caves in nature with medium flow. So you'll see those in those areas as well. So you have to really think about what the coral is before you place it. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll temporarily place a coral and then watch it behave. If it doesn't work well, I move it. And then as soon as I find a place where it seems to thrive, then I glue it in place. Right now, I'm very happy with where things are and how things are going. There is one thing that I'd like to place like a question to everybody out there. I have a it's like a Christmas tree brain coral. It's beautiful and the colors are fabulous. I've grown it since I started reefing in China. It's about, geez, 3 years old, and it's grown considerably. But when I left on my trip around the world, it kind of fell into disrepair, and I came back to it bleached. And I thought, get rid of it, throw it away, it's a stone. So I grabbed it, and when I grabbed it, I felt the flesh of the coral. You're never supposed to grab coral like that, but I did, thinking it was a waste. When I did that, I realized that it wasn't in fact dead, it was just bleached. Now, if you look at it really close, you can still see some color in the coral, and it's actually come back quite a bit, but for some reason, it just can't go all the way. It can't come back all the way, and I've had it like this for about 2 months. I've been babysitting it. When I feed it, it actually opens the pores up. It used to have fingers that would come out, but now they don't. They just simply open the pores up, and so I know it's trying to get some food in there. My guess is that it's formed a protective layer around the outside when it started to have harsh chemical environment back when the tank wasn't being changed and things kind of went into DEFCON 4. And it's waiting for a moment to shed that skin and then open up. But I would like your opinion, because I've never had this happen, and it's a little bit scary because I'd really like to have him like he was before, and I'm wondering when that will happen. Everything else in the tank is doing fantastic, growing extremely fast, so I know that I have an environment that's conducive to coral growth. I just want to find out why this guy in particular isn't growing. So if you can help me with that, that would be great. I'm going to come back in the next chapter, which is actually going to record subsequent to this, and show you feeding, because I've got some new corals in. They're going to receive their first dose of food, and nothing's quite as beautiful as coral feeding. So we'll catch you up with that later, and we'll do some feeding on Matt's reef tank. So, geez, I haven't said my sign-off in so long. May your pH never wander. May your nitrates never rise.